You're weird.
I
It's
know.
official. All right, so we're on. Yeah, no, you bring the microphone in, it sounds a little better. I'm just a real stickler for good audio, so
Okay, well, how do I sound now?
you sound good. I love
All
that
right.
suave radio voice.
Okay, yeah.
So here we are, number 3, Miscreants and Misfits, and we're going to talk about some stuff and no real agenda, but let's just jump into and talk about something that came up in conversation a while ago, maybe a week or so when we were chatting. I don't know why this conversation came up, but Googleplex came up. Do you remember?
Yes. Okay, so Googleplex, which evolved from Google.
Mm-hmm.
Now, many people will probably think that Google is the browser that you use for, looking at stuff on the internet. However, Google is actually a number, and it's spelled a little bit differently than Google, the browser. And Google came about in the late 1930s.
Right.
Some mathematician was trying to come up with a name for a number. And he had, I think, an 8-year-old nephew who made up, what about Google? So it was an 8-year-old nephew who came up with the name Google.
Uh-huh.
And a Google is one with 100 zeros after it.
That's a big number.
Yes. And it is, because I looked this up. The number of atoms that scientists and cosmologists probably think they've calculated in the known universe, the number of atoms in the universe, and the universe is 96 light years in diameter. I've also looked that up.
Oh, really?
That's is 10 to the 83 zeros. So the number of atoms in the known universe is less than one Google.
Wow. That's really hard to wrap your head around.
Okay, now it gets even better. What is a Googleplex?
I have no idea.
Googleplex is, see if I can get this right, 10 to the power of a Google. So 10 times 10 to the power of 100. And they said a Googleplex, there's not enough space in the universe to write out the zeros. And then it gets even better. There is a number called Graham's number.
All right.
Which was invented or was named by a guy named Graham, naturally. The number is so big that I don't know much about math, but something to do with when you write it out, it's a bunch of towers and notations and arrows and stuff.
Right.
And you may ask, well, what is the point of Graham's number?
Yeah, what is it?
It's a geometric type thing where it has to do with vertices and lines intersecting, and the maximum amount of time that these lines can intersect is Graham's number. Like, it's a mathematical equation where you get these, you get a drawing with these lines meeting each other at different angles, and some are red, some are green. And when it stops being tangible, it's like Graham's number.
It's crazy. It's I can't wrap my head around it.
Yes. So this will be a good segue into our next topic.
Well, hold on. I just want to say something.
Sure.
This proves my point.
What?
Two points.
Okay.
You got too much time on your hands. And math is hard.
Math is very hard.
But fascinating. I find it very, very fascinating. Although I hated it in school. I couldn't wrap my head around it in high school. So when I was in high school, I dropped math because I didn't know why they were putting letters and numbers together.
Yeah, me too.
I couldn't conceptualize it. And I took, you needed a math sort of course to get a credit to graduate and get your diploma. And so I took commercial math, which at the time was kind of like bank teller math, which is good because you learned, bank math, but it was all girls in the class. I was the only dude, but I needed that credit to graduate. But math, yeah, interesting. So, but when you sort of touched on that topic, you were going to say segue. Sorry, before I continue, let me let you finish that thought.
Okay.
What do you mean by segue? What specifically were you getting into? What I was about
This
to
will
say?
lead us into the next topic, which I believe is original sin.
No,
Oh,
I want to talk. I want to.
all right. I apologize. I thought I forgot about your.
Yeah, I just want to mention this one thing I found interesting.
Sure, sure.
You mentioned Google and all that stuff, but you didn't get into it to the depth you just did now, but you mentioned it. And I was mentioning some numbers that I found very fascinating. And this is a topic that pisses a few people off because we're talking about homeopathy. And homeopathy, you know, if you look it up and look at the Wikipedia definition and whatnot. I mean, they've even, there's a lot of videos on it and there's a lot of articles, and it's a complete pseudoscience. It's based on a complete pseudoscience. However, homeopathy, a lot of homeopathy doctors do take a holistic approach, and one of the attributions to why there's any success to it is largely the placebo effect, which is to me is a very valid effect. If you want to see proof to that, go on YouTube and search for the documentary called The Placebo Effect. It's fascinating. It's going to blow you away. But anyways, I was thinking about these numbers, back to math, in homeopathy, and I couldn't find the video. I was going to quote it, but I couldn't find it. But I remember a couple of years ago watching this video where they explain, like, homeopathy is they take a chemical, and the chemical is the very thing that's afflicting you, or there might be, I don't know, a plant or something, or a chemical, like you might have cyanide even just to cure something that is, you know, it's really kind of strange. So they dilute it in water and they shake it, and then they dilute it again and they shake it and they shake it. So the dilution is so high, at the very minimum, you will, once you take whatever dosage they prescribe, you will end up with a ratio to the effect of, say, if you drank 8,000 gallons of water, or rather, you would need to drink 8,000 gallons of water, this diluted water with this homeopathic remedy, in order to get one molecule. That's a pretty high ratio. I don't even think we drink nearly that much water in our life. And another example, and this was the one that was in the video I was trying to find, it was fascinating. They said if you lined up the amount of molecules from here to the edge of the universe, you would not reach the amount of dilution that some of those remedies come up with. And that was math showing how something was really kind of like very questionable. I'm going to use the word questionable on homeopathy. So yeah, that's my math example.
Okay, I just have one question.
Shoot.
How do they okay, let's say you have 1 part per billion, let's say.
Yep.
How do they measure it and put it in your remedy? Like, I'm assuming
I don't know.
a droplet of water with maybe 1/1000th of a part of whatever substance they put in. How do they, like, discern or measure the amount? I wonder.
It's all science, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how they came up. I can guess. You'd have to look into it. There's probably some history why, because homeopathy was invented, I think, in the 1800s, mid 1800s, and whoever the guy was that invented it, he probably came up with a formula. But it's largely based on nonsense when you really think about it.
Should call it homeopathia. Homeopathia. Anyway, that was a stupid joke, but
yeah. Well, I thought you meant you were referencing Homer, the Greek philosopher.
No, Homer Simpson.
Okay. A modern day philosopher. So yeah, let's talk about original sin, because that was another topic that came up and we never really discussed it. We just thought, hey, that'd be a good topic to talk about.
Yeah. Now, back to my segue.
Go back to your segue.
Okay, so I was raised a Catholic, and I probably have some of the doctrine wrong, but this is what I believe. Mm-hmm. Okay, so according to the Catholic faith, if you're good and you accept Jesus as your personal savior and you live a good life, you go to heaven. If not, you end up going to the HE double hockey stick. And prior to that, they also had what's called limbo or purgatory. Purgatory, okay? Which is like you eventually get out of purgatory and go to heaven.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, just from my own way of thinking, that a serial killer who's totally unrepentant is going to go to HE double hockey stick.
Mhm.
Where, let's say, a guy who's killed his entire family, and at the very last minute when he's on his deathbed, he actually feels genuine remorse.
Right.
He may not go to heaven right away, but he's not going to get a HE double hockey stick. So he probably goes to purgatory.
Probably. And he'll be there for a long time.
He'll be there for a Graham's number amount of years.
Yeah, he'll be there.
So I'm thinking, okay, what is infinity? And Google. Okay, so those are high numbers, eh? So if you go to HE double hockey stick, that never ends. Now picture you're in purgatory for a Graham number amount of years, and you finally, it's past, and you think to yourself, oh, I'm out of here. At least I'm like that, not like the other guy who's never going to get out. Anyways,
the guy who killed his family, right?
Well, the guy who kills his family gets
or Hitler.
Yeah, well, Hitler's probably going to get HE double hockey stick as opposed to I don't know, a gangbanger who ends up shooting up a bunch of people in the schoolyard or a drug deal or you know. So, anyways, so I'm thinking original sin. Why is this somehow connected? Because I
want to know.
Okay, so if there was no concept of original sin, I'm thinking we would kind of get off scot-free. It'd be kind of like, okay, well, we're not going to be judged or held accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were born perfect, I guess we would not have to worry about all that, afterlife stuff.
Well, that's a big if we were born perfect. And I've never heard you describe this before. And this is really fascinating what you're saying, I find anyways. Others may disagree with me, but I think it's fascinating. I never heard of that angle before, unless it connects with some of the stuff I want to bring up. But so what you're saying is, can you reiterate it in 5 words or less? Just so we get some clarity on it. It's really good, by the way. I like this.
Yeah.
I like where you're going.
Yeah. Original sin. If you don't deal with your original sin, you face the prospects of eternal damnation.
Well, let's
in a way, yeah.
Let's separate it from the whole Christian thing, because that inherently is a whole new discussion, and I'd like to talk about it too. But I think it's sort of narrow and naive and almost childlike to just distill it down to a sort of basic morality story, a myth, and all the symbolism that sort of used to scare people and to scare kids, especially. My mom used to talk about it all the time. My mom she's a hardcore Christian, a Catholic, as I was raised as a Catholic as well. And my father too. And she used to talk about purgatory as well. I like the way you describe it. Graham's number.
Well, it could be, let's say, 10,000 years or,
or whatever. Maybe there is no concept of time in purgatory. I don't know.
That won't be the point. You wouldn't suffer.
True.
I think you need to suffer to cleanse your...
True. And that begs the question, do you need to suffer? And then, of course, how much suffering and for how much time? And we're really going down the rabbit hole here. But
yeah.
So what you're saying is if we didn't have it, we wouldn't have a way of dealing with sort of the evils. Stepping away from the idea that we're not born perfect anyways, which is, I believe, true. And, I think this is where postmodernism sort of goes down this really strange and dark and somewhat evil rabbit hole, where they go down the idea that there is no meaning, really, that you kind of make it up. And then there's the whole transhumanistic side of things, where humans are where it's at, and that's the end all be all. You're taking a very atheistic approach in that sense. But sticking to the topic, original sin and its purpose is kind of like where you're going with all this. If I can throw my 2 cents in,
Sure.
like I'm not an academic by any sense of the imagination. Anybody who's kind of throws darts at us thinking that we're trying to be a bunch of smartasses and academics, we're not. There's a couple of misfits and a couple of miscreants just trying to figure and talk about these things. So, but I've, for a long time, probably back in my 20s, would mildly think about all of the Catholic Christian ideologies and sort of wonder why. Where did this come from? And the one that originally came to me is the idea behind forgiveness. So I want to segue into original sin because they tie together. And I got some thoughts, some ideas, and you can open them up if you want. So, but I always thought forgiveness is a big Christian thing, you know, forgive your neighbor or whatever and all that stuff. Or you go to, did you grow up going to church and also going to confession?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you had, you know, you got this like penance and
Communion, the whole bit. Yeah.
The communion, but specifically
Confession. Yes.
confession was all designed to sort of cleanse
Yes.
and give you a fresh start. And when I was a little older, and especially when I was a teenager and I was getting into some real bad habits, I think, well, it's kind of stupid, really, because you could just go be really bad, go see the priest, confess your sins, and get a fresh slate. But that's a naive sort of approach as far as I can see. But the way I see it is on a grander scale and sort of put it in perspective historically, put it in perspective with how humans developed consciousness, and then we developed philosophy, and we developed ethics and morality. I mean, these are things that humans came up with over how many centuries did we come up with this stuff? And we came up with forgiveness. Possibly it was God. I don't know, but possibly it was in part too, or wholly as a result of humans developing a philosophy and a code of ethics, largely, as you could say, evolutionarily speaking, so that we could stop being aggressive towards one another. Do you know what I mean? So we fight all, humankind's history is blanketed with blood and war. And, the idea that, you know what, our country next door did something really shitty to us, maybe we should just forgive them so that we don't go to war again. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so.
Forgiveness is like
the antidote to original sin, or the remedy. Maybe, is that what you're trying to say?
I'm going to say it's a branch. Original sin is, to me, is the big root, the big foundation. But forgiveness is like an outpouring, a manifestation of trying to find a solution based on ethics and morality. And it's practical because it's like, okay, look, we're killing each other here. We got to stop doing this. So starting with the individual who's pissed off at his neighbor, all the way up to the country or the king and queen who have this big kingdom, and they're going to go fight England's going to go fight France again, or the Greeks are going to go fight the Egyptians, and just like, let's just forgive them and move on. Forgiveness is a powerful, and let's include in that forgiving the individual, ourselves. So you might look at it from a Christian angle or not. I don't think it matters. I think possibly that it evolved for those reasons is all I'm saying.
Okay. One thing about original sin, maybe I misunderstand it, which always irked me, was I'm thinking the concept of original sin is everybody's born guilty.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you're born guilty, so you got to spend the rest of your life trying to not go to HE double hockey stick. You're trying to atone for the sins of Adam and Eve or whatever, you know. So it's kind of like you don't stand a chance from the get-go. It's like it seems really unfair that clean slate, kid gets born, but you're born of original sin, so you're screwed. So you have to spend the rest of your life proving your worthiness, and I don't like that. I think that's
I don't like it either.
And it's only humans that have original sin. Like, do animals have original sin? Like, animals do terrible things to each other, but probably the motivation, an animal, well, I was going to say, well, animals just kill for
survival,
like for survival or food or whatever. However, chimpanzees have got to be the most vicious little bastards. They're like, some tribes of chimps, they're almost like humans. They will, like, they have the alpha male running things, and all the betas will be plotting to overthrow the alpha. And there's all sorts of plotting and subterfuge and violence amongst chimps. And I'm sure. And also, there's a species of ant. I don't know if it's in Mexico or Latin America, where one species of ant enslaves another species. So, is that evil? I'm thinking it is,
sounds like a bunch of racist ants to me.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so I can understand a chimp fighting another chimp over food or resources, but a chimp wants to run the tribe, so he decides to get his cohorts to help him overthrow the alpha, and they end up ambushing him and killing him. It's like, that probably wasn't necessary. I don't know, unless the chimp was totally running the tribe badly. I don't know. Maybe they could have thrown him out. But
so Jane Goodall studied chimps, as you know, and she noticed this violence with some of the chimps. Here's what I know from, like, just being an armchair observant of all these. I want to get back to the original sin again in a second. That's an interesting observation. So chimps, generally, the alpha male is benevolent, generally. Because if he's a brutal dictator, the way some alphas can be, whether humans or chimps or ants, they will plot against them and kill him, the betas. But if he's somewhat benevolent, which they largely are for the most part, the smart ones are like, okay, look, I'm the boss. I get all the women. You guys can get some of the, if you're lucky, you might get some of the women, some of the food, and there's a hierarchy there. And they will not want to kill him because he's somewhat benevolent. This is what her observations were, generally speaking. And you look at that, and she noticed too that some of the chimps would chase down another one and just tear them to shreds. Or if there was a neighboring tribe, they would just go after them and tear them to shreds. They're brutal, violent. So, which leads me to sort of my observation and thoughts on possibly where original sin came from. And I don't think it's a simple, you're born with this sin. I think what it means is that we do, and I believe this true absolutely to my very core, that we all have the potential to be very evil, and animalistic and brutal. And it's not like, some people naively think, and Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time, the Gulag Archipelago, how, when Solzhenitsyn came out of Russia, and he wrote that book, and he explained how dark and evil people are. This is all the same, right? So, and I think this links back to original sin. Original sin is this concept, to me anyways, the way I see it, roughly speaking, that we all have the capability of being very violent, very dark, and that we need to sort of be aware of it and not go down that road. Now, some people do. Some people are psychopathic or sociopathic. Some people have mental health struggles that they can't seem to overcome, and their violence gets the better of them. I can't explain that one. I don't know what that's all about, but I think original sin is more linked, in my opinion, to the darker side of humanity. If you take a yin-yang approach, we all have it. If you don't think you do, I think you're fooling yourself. And we need to find ways to sort of evolve out of that and to become stronger and better people, generation after generation after generation after century after century. And it's a process. And then religion took it and brought it up into this mythology and the stories and the symbolisms and the Bible and everything else, and the not the mythology, but what's the word? There's a lot of it's such a simple word. How come I can't think of it? Like,
metaphors?
No, a church has a lot of
Parables?
Pardon?
Parables?
No, they have processes, when they do like the sign of the cross or the communion. These are all actions you take. Well, it's a simple word.
Sacraments.
No, it's a broader term that'll apply to anybody and anything.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean, and it's on the tip of my tongue too. But I don't.
Let's forget about it. It'll come to me. But you know what I mean. So that's
rituals.
Rituals. Thank you. Rituals. So it's been ritualized as well as mythologized and brought into stories. So original sin, from my original naive notion, which was only brought about in my mind and my experiences from my parents being such, they couldn't explain so much of what their beliefs were about because they just believed. And us, growing up in the 60s and 70s, we were like, and you question everything back then. It's like, no, it make no sense to me. And you sort of notice all these discrepancies. So what do you think of what I'm saying? Am I full of shit or?
No, actually, a lot of times I never thought about, when you mentioned original sin, in a way, it's kind of like every human being is born with the capacity for evil and wrongdoing. I never thought of it that way. I know that we all have a dark side. I really agree with that. But I never related that with original sin. Yeah. I just thought original sin was this unfair advantage, or not advantage, unfair mark against you from the time you're born, that you're born guilty. And in a way
you are.
Yeah, in a way you are. But so I was resentful towards, what do you mean I'm born guilty? I was like, if you're a day old, like, what have you done to hurt somebody else? Yeah. Like, so you're not guilty. You become guilty throughout your life. I can see you evolving with, doing bad things, but being born guilty. So to me, it's almost as if the church wants to put you in your place. They want to keep you servile and feeling guilty, and you're not worthy. Okay, Jesus came down to save your souls.
Yeah,
but the hidden message is, but he didn't have to. You're not worthy.
So you're saying it becomes a power trip.
Yes, yeah. It's like, you're not worthy of our forgiveness, but we're so great, we're going to give you forgiveness. And that's maybe I'm looking at it wrong.
No, you are. I think you're totally valid. I just don't think it's just that.
Yes. Okay, I see that. Yeah.
Okay, I think that what you just described is real. I don't think it's all of it. I think it's definitely a part of it, because we're humans, and humans are running the church and whatnot and all of this. And I believe it's a weaker form of power struggle. And I don't know. It could sound pretty pessimistic, really.
Yeah. It's like, instead of doing good or trying to be a better human being just for the sake of, because it's a good thing to be a better human being and being good, there's the thought, and I've had this when I was growing up, that I have to be good, because if I don't be good, then the ramifications. I don't want to be good for the sake of being good. I want to be good so that I don't go to HE double hockey stick or spend a Graham's number amount of years in purgatory. It's self-interest to be good.
Yeah. HE double hockey stick with Hitler. You'll be with Hitler. So
and the funny thing, everybody assumes Hitler is going to go to HE double hockey stick.
Well, yeah.
Okay, here's something that I just thought of. I was thinking about this yesterday.
What's that?
Okay, psychopaths.
Right.
I've read a lot about psychopaths. I find the whole psychopath thing fascinating.
All right.
And from what I've read is psychopaths' brains are different than regular humans.
Mm-hmm.
They do not feel empathy. Their nervous system is such that they rarely feel anxiety. If not, they don't feel fear. They have poor impulse control. Their emotions are very shallow. So if they're born like that because their brain chemistry is such that it enables them to become psychopaths and evil.
Yep.
Now, can that be an excuse? Can that excuse them saying, well, I'm a psychopath and I'm a clinical psychopath and it's not my fault because I was born this way? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going down another tangent there.
How do you resolve that situation? I would think it would be almost an endless loop conversation if there were some really bad actions attributed to said psychopath. There are psychopaths who I'm sure who don't resort to evil or creating all kinds of problems for society. And
well, there's different levels. There's like a lot of CEOs and political leaders and even church leaders are psychopaths.
Yeah.
The extreme is the serial killers and the sex killers.
Like the Ted Bundys and what have you.
Yeah. But I'm sure Putin is a psychopath probably.
Mm-hmm.
Enron, like the what's his name, Dick Cheney, the old vice president.
Yeah,
all the psychopathic.
Well, he might have been more sociopathic. I don't know, but what about the guy who was charged? He's in jail now. He had the Ponzi scheme and
that guy. Oh, he's definitely a psychopath. Yeah, I know who you mean.
It's a good question, though.
But to the question of what do you do about psychopaths? One, what I've read in some of the books is the best way is to try to convince or persuade the psychopath that their way of living is not good for them. It's like, it's almost as if you don't try to convince them that this is bad and you shouldn't do it because other people get hurt.
Yeah.
Try to convince them that if you keep doing this, things are going to get worse for you. You'll probably end up in jail and it's better that you behave properly, even if you don't want to. So they kind of like work on the self-interest of the psychopath, thinking we're not going to appeal to your decency because you don't have any. We're going to appeal to your self-interest. It's in your best interest not to be psychopathic,
But, yeah, it's a tough call because.
And a lot of them burn out after they hit middle age or something like that. A lot of them. Yeah, some of them they kind of burn out and they're I guess modified psycho. They're not as bad as they were before.
Right. I wonder if that's because of experience and age and wisdom or whatever, if you want to call it.
Could be a lot of things. Yeah.
Maybe it's a delayed development of their conscience and they kind of get some of that. And when they hit middle age and they're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And maybe I hurt that person. Whereas before the idea of hurting somebody never even registered on their brains.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe they just get tired and bored.
So, it's a whole, you're going down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah. Psychopaths and original sin, like.
I want to just say one more thing about original sin.
Sure.
Then let's talk about the other thing we want to talk about. But the thing I wanted to say is when you talk about everything I was mentioning as far as my sort of thoughts on original sin and why it's there, how it evolved and whatnot. And you could almost say that a large part of our ethics and moralities and our laws and our philosophies and as a methodology for resolving struggles and or issues such as aggression, right? All of these things, when you take it down to the individual, for example, the 12-step program of which I'm in, the first step is to recognize your limitations. And it's like a really, really hard step. So you start recognizing all the shortcomings, all the personality defects. So in a sense, I sort of, based on what I was describing about what I feel original sin and where it came from, in a sense, that's one way in how it's played out, because I'm looking at my flaws and everybody's got a different list of experiences based on what they've done that's pretty much screwed up their lives. You know, some are alcoholics, some are narcotics addictions, and some are
Sex addicts
or addicted to
Gamblers.
food, gambling. Oh, gambling's such a big one. But all of these things lead us sort of down certain experiences that we have to resolve. We have to A, forgive ourselves, and B, we have to become very aware of what our flaws are, not only based on why we did what we did, but just to say, hey, you know, I tend to be, say, for example, dishonest, or I tend to be dishonest under these circumstances. And that takes a lot of courage and or rising out of pain to face that shame, and facing the shame, which I like to call the dragon. I did a speech on this last year at a sort of a TED Talk style event in our city. And I called it the dragon, facing the dragon. Heroin addicts call it chasing the dragon, right? It's a different thing. But I look at that as an example of human progress, genuine human progress, arising from this idea that, you know, we are flawed, we have original sin or whatever, and we have to take certain steps in order to move onwards. Does that make any sense?
I think so. Lots of food for thought.
Yeah.
Definitely. Looking at yourself is a good thing. I've had to do it many times in my life, and especially with this lockdown, with the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's like whether I want to or not, because I have so much time on my hands, and at first because the isolation factor, whether I like to or not, started reviewing my life.
Yeah.
In where, you know, what I done wrong, what I could have done better. I started getting insights. And one of the wonderful things that has happened to me is both my parents have passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I see now all the sacrifices and all the work they did in raising myself and my sister.
Right.
And I remember all the good stuff, where years ago I was just so angry at my parents for what they did or what they didn't do. And I mean, I was young, and I think sometimes the anger was justified, but I realized that my parents are human. And looking back the last few months, I kind of reminisce and think about my parents, and they did the best they could, and they actually did stuff out of love. And I feel some closeness and compassion towards them, you know.
Sounds to me, at some level, a form of forgiveness, whether towards them or towards yourself.
I think I've forgiven my parents, and, you know, like, I don't hold any resentment towards them.
Yeah.
Whereas I genuinely hope they are in a good space. Like, my feelings about the afterlife, I'm still not sure.
Yep.
But if there is an afterlife, I hope they're in a good spot, you know?
Yeah. Not playing poker with Hitler.
Yes, exactly.
Covered in ants who are slaves.
And having to run away from the other chimps.
Yeah. Yeah, in a jungle somewhere, surrounded by an army of slave ants, and you can hear chimps running around, and they're conspiring.
Yes.
And Hitler has an evil plan, master plan. So
yes,
that's interesting, and that sounds like wisdom and maturity in many, many ways. But it's an interesting take or perspective on what you used to think was. And I can very much relate to what you're talking about too. You sort of change your views on your parents if you were younger and more resentful towards them, and we tend to blame, right? So it's not my fault. But part of forgiveness and self-forgiveness too is part of recognizing that it wasn't their fault, and whose ever fault it was. I've always been of the belief that we need to take personal responsibility no matter what. You know, never take a position of blaming, complaining, or playing a victim, because it takes your power away. So with because you've worked on yourself a lot in the last how many decades? I'm gonna guess that this perspective you had, which will give you somewhat a sense of peace of mind and wisdom, right? No, yeah,
Yeah,
isn't it?
no, I agree. I found a lot of my demons have been quashed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good. It feels it's part of maybe a lot of people go through it, and hopefully they go through stuff, where you review your
Yeah.
life, you review your behavior, and you learn from it. And when you do that, you look at people that you can look at other people with compassion, because
Mm-hmm.
you realize that let's say somebody cuts you off while you're driving, or somebody is rude to you or whatever. It's not like they woke up that morning and made it their personal mission to screw you. Like, they didn't say to you, oh, I'm gonna, like
Mm-hmm.
it's their stuff,
Yeah.
and usually my first instinct is I want to retaliate, but I know enough now that, okay, well, maybe the guy had a fight with his wife, or he just lost his job, or
Mm-hmm.
he's got this chronic illness that is not going away, or whatever. There's all sorts of reasons. People do things not because of you. They do it because for their own reasons. And sometimes
Yeah.
anyways, that's my thought on that.
This sort of circles back to forgiveness in a
Yes.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you have a position of, well, I don't know what that person who just cut me off or gave me the finger, I don't know what happened to that person.
Yeah.
That what their lives are like. Maybe they just maybe his wife is in chemo. He's got 3 kids at home. You never know.
Or his wife is having fun with Chad and Tyrone, and he just found out.
You never know. So it's hard to say, but it's a compassionate state.
Yeah.
I don't believe is a natural state. I mean, we have the capability, just like evil, we have the capability and the potentiality to be that way. But I think it all is part of that picture. And so you mentioned lockdown and COVID, and something we both heard the other day was Susan referenced COVID. She said COVID 1984.
Oh, yes.
I thought that was fascinating because because I've been exactly thinking about that topic, and I just want to pose that question right now before we come around to an hour and close this crazy ass discussion off, which is civilization devolving into a dystopian Orwellian state? Discuss.
It seems to be. I think it's heading that way. I just hope that there's enough people with enough awareness to fight back. To me, it seems almost 50-50. It's like at least 50% of the people out there don't know what's going on. They're a bunch of sheep. They're fed all this stuff from the media, mainstream media. I like to use,
Yep.
and they really don't see the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a few brave souls which are fighting back, and unfortunately they're being demonetized and kicked off YouTube and Twitter and all that. And it's scary. It's scary. I'm afraid that like we're going to have the microchip embedded in us, and if you don't have the microchip, sorry, you don't get no pay, you don't get no health service, and that stuff looks real. It seems to be coming, and
yeah,
it's scary.
I don't know if the microchip thing is going to happen or not, but I see what's happening now with everything else that's indisputable, like tearing down the statues and the police not doing anything.
Yeah.
And people being canceled. That bothers me the most. And
Yeah.
if I can cite an example of an article that was written about in the Atlantic, which seems to be part of the mainstream media. It's a magazine, right? And they have this article written about Steven Pinker, who's an academic, and they're attacking him just because of some of the stuff that he's writing about. I mean, it's academic in nature, but it's like you're not even allowed to talk about this stuff. I mean, that kind of censorship is one of the steps towards what George Orwell talked about in the book 1984. He wrote I believe 1948. It's freaking insane, the parallels. And there's a lady, I heard, there's another article called 20 Years a Fool, My Long Journey Home from the Left, and she's the Canadian Elizabeth Nixon. I found this article, I don't know where, and she tells her story about how she went, I believe, from hardcore left values, and she kind of became more compassionate as she got older. But she has a website, Elizabeth J. Nixon, and Nixon is spelled Nickson. I never heard of her before. I just literally today found this website. And her title for her website, if you go to it, is called Ink-Stained Wretch, Class Traitor, and Bitter Polemicist. Polemicist is somebody who takes on very uncomfortable topics and talks about them. And she's got on there a list of people canceled in post-George Floyd anti-racism purges. She's listed as best as she could all these people that are being canceled. And if you have a look at them, it's insane. It's absolutely insane what's going on. Somebody tweeted something. Okay, let me give you an example. This one I thought was insane. This was crazy. Somebody made a joke. It was pretty funny. So Dave Andelman, the CEO of the Phantom Gourmet, he was forced to resign from a company he founded in 1993. He made a Facebook post making fun of anti-brutality protesters by suggesting that Boston retailers offer a touchless curbside looting. I thought that was funny. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Touchless curbside looting. Like as if you could actually offer something like that. But it's a joke, and he had to resign. Explain that one to me, please.
People are just, it's amazing. Like, I don't know what to think sometimes.
Careful, you might get canceled.
I'm aghast at some of the stuff that people get upset about. Somebody says something out of context, or even doesn't even, and because a word is deemed offensive, even if you use the word properly, oh, you can't use that word anymore because it's there's probably some leftist think tank that is every day changing, deciding what words are good and what words are bad.
I think that it comes from resentment, envy, anger, or it evolves to anger, and a power struggle. So one thing I've thought about as a metaphor, as an analogy, is the grade school schoolyard.
Right.
You got a bunch of kids out there, and you got your bullies, you got your Karens, you got your hall monitors, and a bunch of kids are, one person, one, say, an intellectual smarty pants girl with the glasses, and she's throwing her weight around because of she's perhaps envious of other girls, and she uses pure power to manipulate and or try and elevate her stance. Very, very childish. I mean, kids do it all the time. Boys are more physically aggressive. Girls are more, I believe, manipulative and what have you. I mean, they're both capable of being either or, but whatever. I don't want to overly generalize, but it seems to me that it's that, and coming out in culture and in civilization with mostly people of adult age. Can't explain it. I can't explain it. I hope it's temporary. I think it is. I think you're right. I think that when you go 50-50, I actually think it's higher, but that could be me being the eternal optimist. I think it's more 80-20, or in the 80, the people who see the nonsense, perhaps 30% of them don't know because they haven't been informed yet, but given enough time, and it wouldn't take a lot of time, you just explain it to them, they go, yeah, that's insane. I could never get on board with this. this thing that's creating cancel culture and creating all of that nonsense, which is nothing more. I mean, you're tattling. It's like one group of people saying, "You're wrong. You are wrong based on this code of morality that I have, and you need to lose everything because of it." That's evil.
It is. It is. It's and just, I don't know if it's dystopian or not, but
Well, it sure is.
no. What you mentioned is definitely dystopian. I'm just thinking of an example. I'm thinking.
An example that could be dystopian. Okay.
Okay, so I go to Walmart quite a bit. I do my shopping there for,
I love Walmart.
I hold my nose. Like, I like Walmart. I know they're supposedly evil and blah blah blah, but they're cheap and they have a good product. So what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
They employ a lot of people. So
we like to buy our things.
Yes. So I usually buy my groceries at Walmart. Good deals, lots of stuff. Lately, I've noticed the last few weeks, most of the checkout are self-checkouts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
No,
I don't want to do the self-checkout. And part of what I don't like about the self-checkout is I like to pay in cash. Okay.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
You can still pay in cash, but when you do the self-checkout, it just adds a wrench into your plans. You have to find a clerk to let them know you're going to pay in cash.
Okay.
And you have to bag your own. I mean, it sounds very petty. Oh, I don't want to bag my own groceries, but I don't want to bag my own groceries. It's just one more thing I have to do,
Okay. Well, bagging is another issue. Let's not even talk about that. That's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But what about paying cash? And that's a pain in the ass. You got to find somebody. But what if this evolves to the point where you're the person who's paying in cash and everybody's looking at you like,
yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that we're getting away from like, to me, cash is tangible. It's in your hand.
No. But let's take it to a social level.
Yeah.
Social shaming.
Okay.
All right. You're the person who showed up and you have that badge that you now have to wear because you decided to not get microchipped and you decided not to get vaccinated. So you're that person and you show up without a mask and you're paying cash and everybody's now looking at you.
Oh, wow.
At Walmart.
Yes.
Is that a dystopian Orwellian world or not?
Is.
Are we heading there?
It is. And I'm also thinking, not quite this, in a way, maybe dystopian. So I think one of the reasons they want self-checking is so they don't have to hire as many people manning the cash. Okay. Yeah. So what's going to happen is you're kind of contributing to the fact that everything is more and more automated so that so that the company can make more money.
True.
So more people lose jobs. And with more people that are unemployed, they're going to have to watch their spending. Yeah. So they won't buy as much stuff.
Well, let me play devil's advocate, just coming from the business angle. So if you were back in the 1800s when cars got invented, but everybody was getting around on horses, and you were a buggy whip manufacturer and you saw the end of your industry, I mean, would you want to force society to keep staying on horses so that the buggy whip industry survives? I mean, this is part of a business evolution.
All right, okay.
They're going to try. We can argue whether or not it's a good thing, and I want to say right out that I don't like self checkouts, and I bag my own groceries, but that's irrelevant. I like going to a person. I always talk to the cashier.
Right.
If they're a young person, man or woman, I could tell and go, hey, are you still in high school or are you in university or college? Or I always have that conversation with them. I get to know them briefly and I'm like that. And I enjoy that interaction and you could tell they do. And for the most part, that's so cold to self-checkout to me.
Yeah. And even like bank, it's like you go to a bank teller, they try to discourage you. Go online or do it yourself. It's
everything's going online.
No, sometimes I want to talk to a human being to make sure stuff gets done.
It's like when you have an issue with a problem and you got to call. Their support.
Right, tech support.
So you bought a TV or something, and you got to go through this whole. It's so cold. voicemail hell. I agree with you, but sometimes just when it comes to services and the way businesses are run, that's just the way it's going to go. I think right now with self-serve, they're testing it for the reasons that you've just described. I hate it. And if they do go that way, there's nothing we can do. We might as well just accept it. And I hope that if they do that, that they sort of really make it so that it's very easy, because I find it's a pain in the ass. I mean, oh, damn, the thing didn't work, and then it's confusing, and they just got to make it really easy so that we can get in and out. Or maybe they'll drop it. There's a part of me that thinks they're just going to say, you know what, this is a shitty idea. Hopefully. Who knows? Let's close off now.
All right.
We're up to an hour, but I'm going to ask you a question, and you can ask me one too if you want.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you a question, and you obviously give me the short answer. Can we survive without police?
No.
You had to think about that one. I agree with you on that one. I just thought it was an interesting question.
Yeah.
Maybe we could.
My thought was that if they abolished the police, we would end up starting a new police force.
That'll be something. I've been hearing things like they're going to start this board of directors, this committee of. It's insane. What do you call a racehorse? No, what do you call a camel?
A racehorse designed by committee.
Yeah. Do you have a question for me, or?
Okay, I don't know how to form it. It deals with reincarnation.
Oh, really? That'd be an interesting topic. Hey, by the way, maybe that might answer the psychopathic thing, reincarnation. You come back as a psychopath because you did something really shitty. You Genghis Khan, you killed all those Chinese people.
Okay, is it really reincarnation if you don't remember your previous life? Because if you're a totally different person and you have no inkling physically, genetically, or memory-wise, or intellectually of your previous life, you are not that other person who supposedly you were reincarnated from was an entire different entity. So to me, reincarnation is not reincarnation unless you remember some residue of your previous life. If not, then you're not reincarnated. You're just a totally different new person. Like if you're a frog and you used to be a human being, a frog is not aware that he used to be a human being, or even he doesn't have the capacity. So I don't know how to word the question. I guess is it reincarnation if you don't think about it or remember it?
Let's talk about it. Next one.
All right, sounds good.
I can't even answer that question.
Yeah.
I can say this much.
Yeah.
I can say this much. If there's such a thing as reincarnation, I would say, and I know some of the Hindu religions where a lot of reincarnation comes from. It's Hindu, right? Hinduism?
I believe so. I could be wrong.
I would like a lot of them believe in that it's like humans and animals.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that if reincarnation is a thing, that it would be exclusive amongst humans only, because it needs consciousness in order.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know much about reincarnation.
Okay, me neither. I just thought about
You get weird ideas, man.
That's my purpose in life, is to explore uncharted territories.
It proves my theory. You got too much time on your hands. No, I mean, no, you've always been that way. And I think to some degree I have too. And I've always found, I've known you about 30 plus years, and it's always been something that's fascinating and inquisitive. I mean, why not? It's almost an affliction. Do you find that sometimes? Just I cannot stop questioning stuff.
I wouldn't call it an affliction because I don't suffer because of it.
So an affliction, you need to suffer for it to be an affliction. So there's probably a better word.
Yeah. It's I don't know. That's for another topic.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna pause the recording here and.
All right. Well, nice chatting.
Nice chatting. We'll talk.